So, dear participants, welcome to the third day of this Atal FTC on flexible and wearable antennas, reset advancements, fabrication, inside applications. Today, for this first session, we have a great researcher with us, Mr. Dundi Kumar. He has done a great work in this field of flexible and wearable antennas. I have attended his earlier sessions and I have seen that he has done a huge work. So, it will be very interesting to know how to overcome various obstacles, problems which we face while working in the field of wearable antennas. So, Mr. Dundi Kumar Janapala received his bachelor and masters of technology degrees from JNPUK in 2011 and from April 2018 to March 2020. He was a JRF in DRDO funded project. Currently working as Senior Research Fellow in DRDO funded project and pursuing his PhD in Electronics and Communication. He is at presently Karnoa Institute of Technology and Sciences, Coimbatore. His research interests include flexible antenna development, wearable technology, sensors, metamaterials, solar cell, energy absorber, medical antenna, microwave and RF components, package antenna, ultra wideband, spectral, multiband, DRA and reconfigurable antennas. And also he is working in the field of developing materials for soft electronics. He has published 5 essay journal papers on various topics related to wearable antennas, reconfigurable antennas, capsule antennas, and solar cells. He has attended many conferences. He won book chapter to his credit. He has also submitted 6 patents which are under process in currently. So with this brief introduction, I thank Mr. Punit Kumar for accepting your invitation and agreeing to be part of this FTP. So now I hand over the session to Mr. Punit Kumar for sharing of your welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for a very nice introduction. Good morning, all. Today, I will be concentrating on material selection and characterization and fabrication issues for flexible antennas. So these are the facilities we have in our laboratories. So NCC Electronics with 19.2 we have FECO and ADAT, and we have analyzer for 9 GHz and 18 GHz too, and we have complete setup for polymer making work. What we do for flexible electronics and all. So we all this equipment, how we use them, everything I will be showing you today by practical demos. So these are the current major things that I'm working currently. So remaining things I work occasionally, but mostly I work on flexible antennas for wearables, especially for medical applications and for medical antennas. It is like I am working on both assistive devices and diagnostics, and I am attempting for therapeutics also, and I am developing some polymers for usage as a substrates for our antenna fabrication or sensor fabrications, and I'm recently started working on conductive materials too. So these are the members of my research group. I'm Nashida ma'am, my professor, and Jabal Singh sir, professor from chemistry, who helps me with nanoparticle making and everything. And Miss Niba ma'am, she works on medical antennas. Vijay Dujan, he works on solar cells. And BT scholar who is here she's working on 5G antennas. So I want to give you a glimpse of the work we are doing. So here you can see on antenna, with the polymer, transparent polymer, and this is the back side. I worked with copper embedded into polymer technology. So this is the second one. You can see that is the smallest antenna that I have fabricated so far. These are for applications polymer sponges. So these are variable polymers that I made in my laboratory. So this is one bio-inspired resin-based polymer. So this is a TiO2 polymer and a pure transparent polymer, and I have made a couple of others too. These things these are the things that I'm going to cover. So what you can expect during this presentation is I'm going to address the main issues anyone will face when they are working in flexible antennas. So the information that you need to start your work on flexible designs and flexible fabrication and how you characterize them, what are the different research topics that you can work on using this knowledge, everything I will provide. So I have added most of the practical demos too. So and there will be less data and more presentation via demos and my oral presentation. So please kindly try to understand my presentation because most of the data will be delivered orally. So first and foremost thing for me to start, with my session, I have to say what is the complication you may face while bending, antenna. So normally, if you take any simulation tool, and if I ask you to make an antenna design, you can do flat. So the flat condition you can do easily. But when you are bending, what you need to take care, especially when you are working with bending antennas. So if I didn't go and finish that thing, even if I tell how you do polymer and everything, it will be incomplete. So first, I'm going to address how the bending can be done accurately with the equations and all, and how you can normally when you go for bending, you will do X bending and Y bending of your antenna. So in that X bend and Y bend, how you will give your port, so the port calculations and all. So as a practical demo in HFSS, I will show you that. So it will clarify you how you can make a bending design very easily without any mistake. And because most of the people will make a common mistake while bending their antenna in the simulation, in the fabricate, the original simulation results that you get and the fabricated results that you match it up. So that's the reason. No, our concentration here in the entire discussion will be like what are the precautions one must data and the measure data will in a good agreement as much as possible. So that is why I'm going to discuss this thing. Next thing is you can customize your own flexible material, and I can show you how to prepare that and how you can alter that and you can characterize that and how the conductive parts what are the conductive parts you can go for and how the fabrication techniques evolve based on the conductive material you take and the applications. So this is what I'm going to discuss during my entire session. So I think this will be a complete guideline for starting your research and ending your research. So now the main mistake anybody will do is the flat design they will take very easily, as you can see here. But while bending, they will make a common mistake where they will just cut based on the bending radius. Few bending radiuses they will take, they will give the comparison analysis. But how exactly I can do proper bending? That is the big question here. So in order to understand that, I will go for next slide and come to further. Suppose I'm going to bend my antenna, my particular substrate. Here you can see the inner radius is there and outer radius is there. If I just cut it flat, so the inner radius length is lesser than the outer radius length. So if you are not taking care of that in your simulation, when you are simulating, that means not having length of your antenna properly at bottom side and the top side, because top side the length of the antenna is more than the bottom side length. So that is the common mistake everybody will make. So here you can see this is the excess part. So this is the excess part one should remove when they are designing. Then only you will get the length of your antenna properly on top side as well as the bottom side, only when you remove this part, this particular part. So if you address this part only, your bending design in the HFSS will come properly. So in order to understand that, I have made simple calculation here. Now suppose imagine I have taken a radius of entire thing. This is a radius r normally I should take, but entire diameter I took it as a r. So obviously the radius will be r by 2. So suppose when you are designing your flexible design, you want to bend your antenna for 50 mm or 60 mm. So that is your radius r by 2 here. Now you know the radius, bending radius that you want, and as well as the length of the antenna that you want to work. These are the only two parameters that is available for you to make your bending design. Now with this, how you can calculate the coordinates for your simulation tool design? That I will tell you. Now yours here is, I need this coordinate and as well as this coordinate. So these two coordinates should be based on exact length. So total length is L. Obviously, half part is L by 2, L by 2. But top also L by 2 and L by 2. So now here I can see that this particular sector, this particular arc is L by 2 and this particular also arc also L by 2 only. Now with this information from here to here I draw one line. Now I need to find this dotted line as well as this dotted line. So if I find these two dotted lines, that means this is probably x1 and this is y1. So this I know this coordinate x1 and y1. Similarly for top, the coordinate is x11 and y11. How you calculate that? You know your L by 2, the length of your antenna and half of it. If for the bottom side, the length is, the radius is r, but the height here is added with radius and as well as the thickness of your antenna. That means here the length will be r by 2 plus h. So for theta dash, theta double dash, that is for top of your layer, that is L by 2 by r by 2 plus h into 180 by pi. So how you calculate x1 and y1? So y1 is r by 2 into sin theta 1 and x1 is r by 2 cos theta 1. Similarly for y dash and x double dash. So when you know this calculation, you can make your antenna design with perfection. So this is a one thing, this calculation is one thing that will help you make your bending design accurately. So why I'm showing this is, so you have your antenna here, you know your length. If you simply cut like this, that is not proper. Either you are cutting little bit extra or you are leaving little bit extra. So either of them will show some difficulty in matching your simulated and measured results. So you have to take care of this one accurately while designing. Now see this design, the bended one, which is done very nicely here. So this particular design is made calculated exactly and the bend is very exactly. So this top length and bottom length are exact. To do that, I am going to show you a glimpse of it so that you people will have an ease of understanding how you design this one very easily. These are the two extra parts. These are the two extra parts one must eliminate while doing their design. So these two parts needs to be. Extra part is not removed properly, then we will have a problem in matching your simulated and measured result. So for that one only we made a lot of calculations and did a lot of design for this one especially. So as you can see, most of you know this simulation tool HFSS. We have 19.2 version here. So at the initial, we take a cylinder, cylinder 1 and a cylinder 2. So cylinder 2 is your cylinder 1. Inside the cylinder is the radius that you want to bend. Based on that, you will make. And the cylinder, upper cylinder will be taking into the consideration of the thickness of the substrate that you want to do. So you do that and you subtract cylinder 1 from cylinder 2. So then you will have a hollow space, hollow cylinder here. Then after that, first you take off box and remove this first part, half part. So that one, so that means you select your cylinder first, the hollow cylinder, and remove that box part. Then you will get this particular part. Here is where our particular calculation come into handy. Now here you can see this line. This line usually based on your 2 pi, this particular length, you will calculate how exactly you have to take the angle and you will take this one. But if I straightly remove this one, here you can see this is the extra part that is still remaining. So first I will be, you have to calculate and remove this part. So for this one, I have selected individual lines, polymer. See, you can see these lines are all individually arranged together. So you can see polyline sheets. You can go for sheets. You can see first I draw only this particular, face of this one. So you can next I drew similarly backside one, then I drew this particular slant one, then I drew this particular one. So on bottom one and top one, after I made individual sheet, I united them and made a box. So that particular box hollow half cylinder that we have here, you can see sx by 2, sx by 2 minus y1. Then this is how you get your perfect particular bending design. Now why I gave the variables and why I did in this way is, so suppose if you want to vary your bending, and suppose your antenna in flat condition you got the frequency, but in bending you are not getting, you want to design your antenna while bending. Suppose you are working for directly endoscopy model, direct flexible antenna. In such cases, you no longer bother about the flat condition results. Directly, you will go for a flex condition results. In such cases, you have to make sure that each time if you are taking based on the length and radius, each time you want to bend and do the design, it is really complicated to change this many coordinates every time you need a change. So you can see all these coordinates you have to change. That will be really hectic thing. So you give these equations, you enter them into your design properties, and you directly, instead of coordinates, you give your variables everywhere in your design. So everywhere in your design you can see all are done with variable instead of coordinates. What it will help is, suppose now I want to work with some 30, I will enter 30. See the bending change it, you can see the bending change it. Now I am going to go with the 70. See the bending change it. Now again I want to give some 50, and the radius in axle length I want to reduce to just 20. Press OK, and you can see the length is reduced. Sorry, width is reduced. So this is the advantage of making your design with variables in the simulation tool. If you are able to do this based on the calculation I have shown in that two slides, then your simulation time will be very easy, and probably you can use parametric study and do your simulation as fast as you can with the various number of radiuses. Because not when you do your flexible design, it doesn't it's not necessary that you will get a proper reflection coefficient for every bending you do, because there is a limit of up to what radius you can do bending. Beyond that, if you bend, your reflection coefficient may not come in the frequency you need, and it will completely may not radiate also properly. So there is a limit to bend. So this particular way of design will help you find that exactly what are the bending radiuses you can select, and you can compare for your research article. So that is why that is the reason I want to show take 15 minutes to show you this thing before I go for my original presentation. I hope these calculations will be helpful for you for maintaining your doing your design easily. So this is the calculations. This is the calculations so that we did for everything, and you have to take note of these things only, and you have to enter there, and you will get your bending design very easily. So I wanted to address this particular part while doing that. Now okay, now this particular thing is done. Now what are the other complications that you may face? Two complications you will face. So people either they want to bend in x direction or y direction. Suppose I want to bend here. So my antenna strip line is here. My antenna is bended like this. So bended like this in x bend. So my strip line is like this. No, then in such cases I need to give the port here. But if I bend in y direction, then I have to give my feed here. So how exactly you do this particular port assignment with the exact calculation? So that also I'm going to address. So here, this particular modeling of this particular port in x direction is similar to the bending design that we did. So the calculations are similar here. Based on the length of your entire substrate, you calculated x1 and y1. But here, length of your particular port is equivalent to your strip line length, mostly you will take. So strip line width is suppose fx, then instead of length sy that we took, we will take only f. Okay, so whatever the length of this one only we will take into consideration. Similarly, how we calculated x1 y1, we will calculate here also for fx1, fy1, fx2, fy2. So these two calculations will be calculated based on the length of the port instead of the length of the substrate. That is the only difference that I know that is there here. So here I would like to show you that by removing also. See, so whatever the design that I showed you before, now I'm showing the same thing in a 2D. That I'm showing you the same thing in a 2D. So first I took a 2D plane of cylinders, a 2D plane of circular discs, and I made a hollow part. So after making a hollow part, bottom part removed and the edge parts removed. So the particular thing has come. Now in the previous design, if you are interested, do that from scratch, then you will get enough practice. But if you want to finish your design little bit ease, and you don't want to do the entire 3D modeling, and you want to do only 2D modeling and try to get the 3D modeling, how you can do that very easily is, so probably I'm going to hide this one view, hide in all views. Now you can see only small arc in 2D you will see. Now HFSS design properties here, instead of fx, I will give some 20 or something. So my length of my substrate suppose is 20. Based on that, I did only 2D modeling. Now what I will do is I will select this one, edit, surface, okay, thicken sheet, and I will give some length. Suppose imagine my length of my width of my antenna also some 20. Now you can see. So this is how you replicate only 2D design you make, and you get your substrate in an easy way with 2D modeling. You just need to set only thickness of whatever the width you need using the thickness option. So the same thickness option, sometimes you will be working with different conducting parts. So in such cases, suppose you are suppose you are having one sheet here, so you are wrapping that, and how you use that one. Suppose I will show you this also, probably -2 comma -2 comma probably some 100 As you can see, this one, I will select this one and this one. Okay, edit surface wrap sheet. Okay, sorry, this length is little bit less, I think. So what I want to show is here, this particular one, if you want to work with some silver nanoparticles or copper nanowires or something, and you know the conductivity value of that one, normally most of the times when you use the simulation tool, we will just select this particular part, and for radiating part, we will give SN boundaries and perfect E. But instead of that, you can just give edit, surface and a thicken sheet, and you can give, suppose you are working with some 35 micrometer of coating or something, so you can give that and press OK, and you can see it got some thickness, and you can particularly select that one, and instead of vacuum you can select that particular material, add material, suppose what some silver or something you can select, and you give the relative conductivity of that value and relativity and validate your material and press OK. So in that way you can give particular material, conductive material that you are choosing for your fabrication. So you can just thicken your sheet and assign that value. So that is the thing I want to show. So in a similar way, another one is now this one. This one is actually quite easy. The port assignment in Y bending is quite easy. Now imagine your strip line is here and your antenna is bended in this orientation. Now your port is here. For this port, this is a very simple one compared to the port in X direction. You can see only this calculation, only fx by 2, fx by 2, the length of the width of your particular strip line, that is what we are taking as fx and fx, and y2 z2 y2 z2 are nothing but the calculations that we did here. So friend, so this is the whatever this is the coordinate is the coordinate for bottom, whatever the coordinate for we calculated here using that particular calculation, these are the same coordinations for this one too. So you make a particular polyline spaced one, polylines, you take polyline, so you make a sheet using them and you give the coordinates based on the y2 z2 y1 z1. So you are same. The only thing will change is instead of sy by 2, you will put fx and fx minus fx by 2 and plus x by 2. So this is how you do x band and y band, and the port assignment is different in x band and y band. The calculations are simply different. Compared to x band, the giving the port in y band is quite easy because you don't need to do much here. You have to take, all you have to take is a sheet and give the coordinates, that's it. But the particular for x band only, the port calculations are similar to the bend design we do. So that is one thing you should take care, and it will take some time. So in this way, we can go for single bend to multiple bends. So I want to show you these two. So here you can see I have done 4 layers of this particular one. So suppose if you are having a very good system and processor capabilities, if you want to do SAR analysis, you can select the phantom models available directly in the license version of ANSYS HFSS and you can use them. But what if you don't have that phantom model, or it's taking too much memory consumption and you don't have enough memory to compute all these things by taking the real-time phantom model. So in such cases, most of the people will go for skin, a 4-layered model of skin human tissues, and they will do that. So that tissues, like what you will take skin 2 mm and fat for some 5 mm, around 5 mm or something, and again muscle some 7 mm to 10 mm, and then bone some 10 mm or something. So you take flat of this condition. Now I am giving you a glimpse of how you can take that 4-layered structure in a bending also. Say where once you do one bend, and it's very easy to do number of bends. The same procedure only I will follow, but first layer I took h as a thickness, second layer I took hs. So first one radius is Ra, for the second layer it will become Rs equal to Ra plus the thickness of the first layer. Similarly for the third one, it will become Ra will become Rs plus Ra plus H plus H. HS. So that it is like you are going step by step above and you are calculating and cutting this particular one exactly whatever the dimensions that you want. So you probably give H as some 10 mm, HS as some 10 mm, and then HT some 5 mm, then HR some 2 mm. So your skin model, that skin fat and all this 4-layer model is available in bending condition also. So you can take your soil analysis flat condition and as well as a bending condition also you can take. So that means in flat condition your antenna is flat, what is the frequency you are getting, and a flat SAR. And similarly you go for bending your antenna and placing it on top of a bended skin layered model, and you take the bending analysis also. So you can compare your research in that particular way, and you can project your article in that way. So this is what I wanted to cover before I go for my presentation. Hopefully these things will clarify how you exactly can make a design using the equation, and how you can go for bended different bending. So this will the reason we did is, even if you want to go for very minute capsule antennas also, you simply give radius as some for 3 mm or 5 mm bending and thickness some 0.05 mm, then the capsule antenna substrate is ready, the design is ready very simply. So you make one time this design and you can use it for all of your research a number of times. That is why in the initial stage of my research itself, some single layer to some 4 layers I designed and I kept it for further use. So this probably you should start first. So now I will go to the original topic of my work, and now here onwards, please take a note of it. Now, material selection for flexible antennas. So here, not only flexible antennas, I will be discussing several other flexible applications along the way I am going. So there are several flexible materials, dielectric materials that are available, and there are some conductive materials we choose for making a flexible design. Now, if you see, these are the polymer-based different substrate that we commonly use PTA in our fabrication PTFE film for vacuum placing of our contacting particles, and polytetrathalate liquid crystal polymers, polyethylene glycol. Polyethylene glycol is a like a hydrophilic, but if it reacts with water, it will get dissolved. So that is the reason most of the people won't go for that one. So, but in the world, the most commonly used one is polydimethyl siloxane, PDMS. So I'm going to take this particular polymer. With the help of this particular polymer, I'm going to show how you can do different things in flexible antennas using this particular polymer. So now, before we go, now the main problem when you are going for customizing your own polymer is validating your dielectric properties each time. Suppose if somebody is working on the materials that are available like FR4 roses or something, you will, if you go to the particular website and go through the data sheets will be available for you. What is the usual thicknesses available for that particular substrate? What are the dielectric constant of that particular substrate? And up to what frequency that articulation are good. If you want to go for millimeter application, what material you should choose. Everything will be there in the websites of companies like Rogers and all. But when you are working with flexible antennas, there are obviously some flexible materials are available. 3006 Rogers is there, 3010 Rogers is there, and FR4 also some flexible material is there. Even 5880 Rogers also flexible material is available. Some from the dielectric constant lowest to some highest they are there. So some around some 8 to 2.22, some 10.15. The dielectric constant materials are there for you. So here you can't change much, because the flexible material, once you bend it and put it, it won't retain its original position. So once you bend it, it will not get flat on its own. Again, you have to bend it to flat. Again, you have to bend to conformal, and every time you are using. After some bendings, it will lose its properties slowly, and that avoidance of that particular thing. So we are usually going for textile antennas and polymers. So in textile antennas, there are wonderful things that you can do using textile fabrics, but there are even more wonderful things that you can do using polymers. So that is the reason I stressed more on polymers instead of textile modules. But here, every time you work on a particular dielectric material for your to suit your particular application, so whenever the combination is changed, the first thing you need to do is evaluating its particular properties. So the dielectric properties measurements, there are some 5 to 6 different way sampling modeling is there, pro modeling. This is the pro modeling is there. So different models are there. The most commonly one used is this one, where in the semi-liquid state you will take your polymer and you use the probe method, and your dielectric constant versus frequency curves will be provided using this kit. And with that, you can see from, suppose you have evaluated from 0 to 18 GHz and you are working at 2.4 GHz, and you can see at 2.4 GHz what is the dielectric property of that particular one, and that dielectric constant you have to enter your simulation. I will show that, in the later session I will show you how you can enter these properties that you measure into the simulation, and you can use them for your simulation. I will show that. So, but the primary thing you need to know whenever you are working with polymer is, every time you are customizing your polymer, it is mandatory that you test your dielectric properties using this one, and then enter that values to your simulation, and then you go for fabrication. So this is the validation of polymer substrate in a simple way, is the decay properties. Okay. Apart from this, you can test its tensile strength. So because sometimes the polymer you are taking, if it's breakable very easily, then it will no longer serve your purpose. If you have taken a polymer and you are working with that, and you have fabricated and it's easily breaking while you are using, it is not robust as you expected, then it will no longer serve your purpose. So that is the reason you need to test its strength also, so that you can improve it if needed, and you can make a perfect antenna that it can be durable for a longer time usage. So the reason the polydimethyl siloxane we are going is, it is transparent, it is very flexible, it is elastic in nature, and it will expand. Suppose you are using it on any part of your body, based on the muscle flexibility of your body, the polymer also will extend, elast. So that is one of the beautiful thing with polydimethyl siloxane. That is one of the reason many people who are working for wearable sensor, for diagnostic, and as well as for monitoring purpose or everything, the people are choosing to use over a lot of other polymers. So it is very easy to fabricate, and there is a high scope to alter. Why I'm saying alter is, suppose somebody is working in fabric, you can go at different kinds of fabrics with different dielectric properties easily available. But here is the choice where you can add impurities to your polymer, and then you can get your the dielectric constant that you want. You can alter its mechanical strength levels by adding the impurities. And each time when you do that, you again validate its like a properties and mechanical strength, and you use it for your simulation. Its suitability for plenty applications: solar cell encapsulation, sensors, fingerprint modeling, AI assisted sensors, robotics, motion sensors, electronic skin, lot of things that I can, especially for energy harvesting purpose, this polymer can be used, by altering it. So the plenty of applications are there. In the last class, I will discuss about the applications. So these are the steps involved in making a simple polymer. So this is the base and curing agent, and you have to measure it, and then you have to mix it, and then you have to, when you are mixing, you will get the bubbles. You have to remove them, and you have to put it in a mold, and you have to bake it and remove it. Now this entire process I am going to show you as a practical demo on a video, then you can understand that how we are doing that. So this is the polymer we purchased. This is called Silgard 184, and 184, and the producer is Dowsil. And if you send a mail to them, they will guide you to Mumbai one Chem Electronics, I think. So they are the people who are supply I got from them. So it costs 1 kg, 1.1 kg thing. It will cost you around some 10,500, around some 10,000, around including GST and freight charges and everything. So this is the big one is base elastomer, and this one is hardener, curing agent. So what we do is we take 10% of this one and 1% of this one. That means if you are taking 10 grams of base, and you have to take 1 gram of hardener, and you have to mix. So here the practical demo I will show you. So this is the polymer. So it will be very, very sticky. So use the gloves because even if you want to wash, whatever you use, you will feel still thickness in your hand if you touch it directly. So this is the polymer. So once you take the polymer, then you take the hardener. So 10:1 ratio. Suppose if you are taking 22 grams, you have to put 2.2 grams of hardener. So that's how we are taking. So once you measure both, the next thing you have to go is stirring. So this is a Remy made head stirrer. This is police rod and we have a control knob here. We will adjust the speed. So as you can see, when you increase the speed, it is mixing properly. So actually, as a matter of fact, you can mix with your hands also for 10 to 15 minutes or 20 minutes. But I will advise you go for head stirring because this particular composure will be mixed very, very nicely and your polymer will not become brittle and break easily. So once you make, there will be thousands of bubbles formed. Yes, here, as you can see here, it is fully bubbles. So here this is called vacuum desiccation process. This desiccator and we will inside it and we will close it and we will keep the knob open. This is a motor where we will connect it with the pipe system and put some pressure. So this process will be like, you are sucking the air out of this particular pot. So when it's pulling that air out, these bubbles will come up. So this is the process of removing. Here you can see I am putting some pressure to it. So then this particular bubbles will come. I will show you that. So here you can see the bubbles are coming up from your solution because even if you are leaving a single or a couple of bubbles, they will affect your characterization, they will affect your measurements also. So that is the reason that this desiccation process should be done until the bubbles are removed. There will be a couple of bubbles on the surface of your particular beaker that you can blow them probably by just blowing some air to it, or you take a sharp needle and you can pop them. So here I'm going to show you. So here you can see the bubbles came up. Now the bubbles are going inside. See the bubbles are reducing. You can see when I release the air pressure, the bubbles are again popping. The bubbles are popping slowly. So see again they are coming up. Again when I start the process, they will slowly come up. Okay, the bubbles will come up out of your solution. And when you start releasing again these things will go down. See, here again they are going down. So this process you should repeat for a couple of times so that the bubbles are cleared and you got your crystal clear solution without any bubbles. So this is the reason we do vacuum desiccation, to remove all the bubbles. After that, you can make here. I am showing this one. This is the molds I made using my glass plates, 1 mm thickness samples, because I want to test all the samples with the same length and same thickness, so that I can compare while putting the paper. So for the demonstration purpose, I made this one. But if you are working on the antenna, probably you might be working with 50 mm by 50 mm radius. 50 mm by 50 mm length and width of your antenna. It's a thickness of 1 mm, maybe 1.5 mm, maybe 2 mm. It's up to you. So you select 1.6 mm, any thickness that you want to work, any size you want to work. But I will advise you, suppose if you want to work your antenna 50 mm by 50 mm, probably you try to make a little bit bigger polymer, because the edge parts, the unevenness will come at the edge parts. So it is mandatory that you do little bit bigger polymer and you cut the edge parts, use the middle part 50 mm by 50 mm. So for customizing your own molds, you can go for silicon molds preparation, or you can discuss with the chemistry people. They will have a lot of glass components, right? The people who deliver these glass components, they usually make customized glass setup for us. So here in Coimbatore, the person who supplies for our chemistry lab, I usually go to him for customizing my molds based on the thickness and length and width I need. So I will get them and use them. So properly you can also do that. If not, you can work with 1 mm thickness by taking microslides molds that I attached on a big 1 feet by 1 feet glass here. So here while pouring, you can see that I am placing the beaker very, very near to the mold while pouring. Why is, if you are keeping a distance between your beaker and the mold, then while it is getting poured, again it will create a bubble. So that bubbles popping is again a difficult task to do. So that is the reason you have to be very careful while powering and make sure that you are not creating bubbles again while powering. So that is you have to keep as close as possible and equally adjust. Now this particular polymer after powering you should be very patient. You should have a lot of patience first, because if you after pouring, if you directly put it in the baking, what happens is most of the our constructions are like one side it will be little slant. So when you put it here, what happens is slowly this liquid will come to one side and it will get baked, and you can see that one side so one side the particular polymer is high and one side the particular polymer thickness is less. So that will be like you will be getting a polymer which is very uneven in thickness that you can't use it. So that is why you need to put it outside for at least 2 to 3 hours, let it settle equally. And if you pour any extra, slowly that extra part will come out of your mold slowly. So that part you slowly clean and clean, and every some 20 minutes 30 minutes try to rotate your mold a little bit, so let it settle down in every corner of it properly. So that is how, this is the precaution you must take for 2 to 3 hours, so that your polymer is just adjusted as even as possible, so your substrate is as even thickness as possible, so that your simulated and measure characters will be matching. But if you are too quick to put it in the baker directly, then it will spoil everything. And here our oven, actually I adjusted with the mercury level, I adjusted it to as flat as possible, and despite that I will give enough time for the polymer to settle, and then I will put for baking. Here when I say baking, probably I should say it is annealing. So the annealings are 2 3 types are there. So normally you can keep it outside at room temperature itself, it will cure in 24 hours on its own. If not, you go for baking. So if you want to go for rapid annealing, that means fastest annealing, you can go for 200 degrees or above for 2 to 3 hours. That is one thing. You go for medium annealing, where you can go for 120 degrees or something for 4 to 5 hours, and you can put some 50 degrees or 60 degrees for 6 to 8 hours. That is another annealing. But if you go for a little bit slow annealing, then your polymer will be very little bit it will have a little bit good mechanical properties. Here, the thing that changes is aim modulus, the sensor strength that changes in this particular one. To show this video, actually I baked it at a very high temperature for making this video, because I wanted to complete everything in a single day. So I baked it. After that, you can see while peeling, I have to slowly first. It will be attached to your mold very highly. So I have to slice it down at the corners, every corner properly before I remove it. Then slowly I should go for removal. So if I am not slow enough, because I did it at a high speed, I mean high annealing, so it will break a little bit easier. So you have to be very careful. So see, you can see it broke a little bit here. So be careful while you are peeling. So you will get it slowly. See a crystal clear polymer sample that I made. So this is how you simply make, okay, just take 10:1 ratio of your polymer and then mix them very well using the head stirrer. The head stirrer will cost you only 10,000 to 15,000 including GST, and that weighing machine lab grade. If you want to work with nanomaterials or something, you should go for lab grade weighing machine. Otherwise, a simple weighing machine will be enough for you. And that head stirrer is probably 15,000, and the vacuum desiccation, that entire setup, the motor is costing around 12,000. The desiccation pot, and that pots are available with different sizes. Please go for a smaller size, because if you go for bigger size, it will take a lot of time for you to desiccate. So go for smaller version, then your time will be reduced. So that will be costing around some 2,000 or something only. That pressure controller and that thing will cost you around some 1,500. So the entire setup over some 15,000 to 20,000 basic one. The entire polymer making setup is available domestically within the price of some 50,000 only. So that is the beauty of it. Is you can use a simple equipment and make your polymer very nicely. So this is the preparation of demonstration for the simple polymer PDMS, polydimethyl siloxane. Now what you can do. The next thing you have to do is that polymer usually at 2.4 it will have the dielectric constant of 2.6 to 2.7 with a loss tangent of 0.0314. Now that is that particular low dielectric property is one thing that makes it very suitable candidate for working with variable antennas, and you will get a good bandwidth to while working with this PDMS. So now you want to have a high dielectric constant, you want to vary its dielectric constant, you want to vary its mechanical properties. How you do that? By adding the impurities like barium, titanium oxide, and titanium zinc, and graphene oxide, and some ferrite based oxides also there. So you can add different oxides to it, and you can alter your polymer, and your decay properties and mechanical properties will change, and based on the weighing ratios you are mixing. Suppose I'm missing 0.1 ratio of TiO2, the decay will be varying differently and the mechanical strength will be different. If I'm adding 0.5 weight ratio, it will add again, the decay will change. So the weight ratio, not only the particles that you are adding, the weight ratio will play a significant role in altering all your particular properties. So this means to say that you can literally play with polymer altering, and you can get what are the data constant you want and mechanical strength you want. So but you have to just spend time and make the composition and validate the decay and mechanical strength. So over the time you can make it down at what ratios you are getting the dielectric content that you are requiring, and what is the mechanical strength that you are requiring at what ratios you are getting. So with that ratios you can work on it. So now I completed most of the samples. Probably if you I will be putting from those ones. So here, there is a small difference between making a pure polymer as well as the impure polymer. So that one only, the entire procedure is similar to the previous one, but there are few things that you need to take care of here. So suppose if you are getting a nanoparticle directly purchasing from any vendors, you can probably in your paper directly you can put like the particular GO grade number so and so is purchased from so and so vendor. Like that you can mention in your paper article directly, and you can proceed with your explanation. Or not, we can make your own GO using your own methods, and there are different variations of GO methods are there in material science papers. But when you make it, when you make your GO particles and you dry it, this is how it looks. The nanoparticles are grouped together, and they are like a wafer here. You can see in this one. What you need to do is you need to take this model and twister, and you have to grind it slowly, grind it properly, and the nanoparticles mixture will be very fine. And this is called a spatula, and you can use it to scratch that one and take it to your consideration. Now here. So the practical demonstration again. So first I will take a weight ratio of my particular GO, the GO that I made. So after grinding it, I will take that particular one. After that, I mix with a little bit of deionized water, a drop, and ethanol. I added a little bit, and I put that beaker in this particular one. This is called ultrasonification. Your particular polymer uniformness, the impure polymer uniformness will depend on how well your geoparticles are dispersed into the solution you took. So that is why probably you should consider reading the papers of nanoparticle dispersion into various solvents and all. I will give you some reference for that one too. So this particular equipment, sonificator, it costs, basic one will cost some 20,000 or something. So this will vibrate at a very, very rapid speed, and your nanoparticles will disperse into the solution very uniformly. That is the reason we go for this particular sonification. So once you mix it for, so you do it properly for 20 minutes something, and your mixer is very uniform, then you put it in your beaker, and then the particular PDMS which you process it and remove the bubbles, that you pour. I took 2 grams of this solution and around some 7 grams of polymer, which is mixed with base and curing agent, and remove the bubble degassing and everything, that I added that. What process you have to do is, again you have to use the chemistry that I showed you. You have to mix it, and you have to put it in the certification for 1 to 2 hours, so that the particular particles are mixed well into your PDMS uniformly, and then you pour it into the mold just as I showed you previously, because already I showed you, right? I wanted to reduce the time, directly I put that. So I baked it, and this is how you remove your polymer. and you can see this is the impure polymer. Okay, impure polymer, geo embedded component. Actually, there is a resin, natural based resin components I added into this one. These mechanical properties are a little bit good. So I will give you another demonstration of different polymers that we made. Suppose this is a pure polymer. So normally when you make it, it will feel little bit stickiness when you hold it. So you clean with and you spray some ethanol on top of it and use your hair dryer, hot air dryer, and dry it. Then that stickiness will go. And sometimes okay. If you are not breaking it properly, it will not peel off properly. So that's another thing. Now here one nature based resin. So I want to improve the mechanical properties of my polymer. So I am looking into making natural based copolymers embedded into this particular PDMS. So this is one such polymer that I made. Its mechanical strength is a little bit hotter compared to the pure polymer that I made. So again, another one is so TiO2 polymer. So this is the TiO2. I have taken white one and I mixed it into my particular polymer, and this is the polymer we get. Now, why? See, you can see this elastic nature is better than the particular first polymer, pure polymer. So I will compare that to you in my hand. See, you can see my TiO2 polymer is flexing better than the PDMS, this particular pure PDMS. So this is the reason I am going for ordering polymers in different way. So the process is just like the how I did with Geo. You have to mix it, you have to grind it finely, and you have to put it into solvent, and you have to disperse it using solidification, and then you have to put it into polymer, and then you do the head stirring and again degassing and again powering and baking and peeling off. That's the thing. So now this is one less thickness, the same polymer, the less thickness we made for pressure sensing and some direct skin contact applications like sensing and all. Very just 0.02, 0.03 thickness only, but it will tear very easily. That is one reason that I want to improve its mechanical strength. So that's why I was altering. So this is one functionalized graphene prepared by my Professor Jabbar Singh sir, which I use it. So here you can see the polymer is very less in thickness, and it's very good in elastic. See, you can see very good elastic stability. So this is another one we worked, but the thing is when I mix it, a couple of problems I am facing is some of bubbles are forming while baking, even though there are no bubbles when I put it inside. This is probably the maintenance of little bit pH quantity when I mix the solvent. So I am actually trying to adjust that particular point now. Now, next thing, when you see most of the wearable antenna literature, you can see most of the antennas they present like SAR analysis. They'll put like the antenna is placed at a minimal distance of 5 mm away from phantom, 10 mm away from phantom, and it is given a 100 milliwatts input. Like that, they will project in the paper the SAR analysis. So, but in reality, we can't expect our antenna to be in the air with a 10 mm distance. It will not float. You should be having some spacer. So there are very few papers that are actually addressing that issue, and they are taking into consideration of some polymer-based spacers like PV or something. So the spacer also they are taking 3 mm or 5 mm spacer, and they are placing the antenna. So the antenna and our particular human body tissues in between that they are keeping the spacer. So I wanted to work on that also. I wanted to replicate single iridation process of porous nature material. So sponge material, sponge polymer. So the porous nature means holes. I want to control that using the single iridation process. As you can see, the attempt is failed completely, and you can see that some bubbles are bigger, some bubbles are smaller. So then I came across one fantastic paper. They're using the sugar cubes to make the polymer substrate. So I made with pure PDMS, TiO2, and as well as Geo embedded. And the TiO2 while cleaning it got dispersed and it failed. So you can see some of the polymer broke and dissolved in when I'm cleaning. So how we clean it is after breaking at a high temperature, the sugar particles will start melting. Then I will put it in. There is one equipment called Mandic stirrer with a temperature. You put the temperature to 100 and put a beaker on top of it with water, and you put these samples inside. And you put the magnet on, and you will keep on rotate. You do this for 1 day, and these sugar particles will slowly dissolve into the water and will get clear. So that is how you will get the sponge with the holes. So here you can see this is pure polymer sponge. Pure polymer sponge. This the applications are more. I will tell you what are the applications. So this is a Geo embedded sponge. So my idea of working with the polymer sponge is I want to use it as a spacer. One is I wanted to reduce the soil using this one, and this particular geopolymer and this sponges, they will have high dielectric properties. I want to adjust this one in order to isolate the body effects on antenna performance, because our body high dielectric properties will affect our antenna performance. I want to isolate that. Another thing is if you are putting antenna directly to our body skin contact, this particular polymer will close your skin holes, and after some time you will feel irritation once you start sweating. If you are having sponge as a spacer for wearable application, this sponge will give some ventilation to your skin and you will feel the comfortness. And again, one more thing is, this is the basic stage as a dielectric sponge, and you can activate this polymer and do the electrolysis process, and you can use it as a conductor also. And this is how the people are using this particular polymer sponge for tri-bioelectric nano generators. So energy harvesting purpose also people are using flexible tri-bioelectric nano generators using the oxides embedded polymer sponge and ultralight. This is another application that you can work. If you want to make a hybrid model antenna along with the flexible energy harvesting mechanism, this is one thing. I am at the baby step and I started that. Probably I will complete the remaining 2 stages too and check its compatibility with my work. So now I made my polymer and I validated decay properties and mechanical properties. My polymer is ready. Now I want to go for attaching my antenna part. So here, embedding conducting part inside. If you are not activating your polymer, so you can simply embed your conducting part inside your polymer and put another polymer layer and cure it. So your conducting part will be inside of your polymer like an encapsulation. That is one way to do your fabrication using flexible antennas. But if you want to coat on top of the PDMS, then you need to activate your polymer, hydrophobic to hydrophilic. Basically, hydrophobic means something that will not react with water. If you put a water drop on top of it, it will not have any reaction with that one. It will stay like a bubble, parabolic bubble. So hydrophilic means you can put a drop, it will disperse evenly onto the surface. So your particular polymer surface should be hydrophilic in order to print any particular conductive part. That is the reason hydrophobic to hydrophilic surface activation must be done before you print any conductive part. It is like you try to coat some water paint on top of the plastic, it will not take it because it will group together, it will not coat. But if you coat that into paper, it will take it. So that is the difference between hydrophobic and hydrophilic. So you have to activate that. So the procedure to do that is oxygen plasma treatment, there is UV treatment, is there, different other techniques are there. But currently what I am working is there is you may not get the proper equipment to do the plasma treatment everywhere. I am trying to work with copolymers where the hydrophobic, the particular polymer will have some percentage of hydrophilicity suitable for printing software electronics. That is what one thing I am working. Probably if I get the success, I will share that in some other sessions. Why I am highlighting super hydrophobic here? Super hydrophobic means it will not have no reaction with your whatever the water content that is there in your printing part. It will not have any reaction at all. The super hydrophobic nature is very important for the people who are working with microfluidic channels as well as the implants, because when the implants will be coated with this super hydrophobic polymer, what it will do is, suppose if you are having an implant inside your body, after some time your implant is a foreign body to your human body. So it may react to your human body fluids and it will create some harmful liquids that probably will be damaged to your body for longer usage. But when you work with super hydrophobic coating, then that particular body fluids will not react with your particular implant. Then that will be very good for longer usage. So this plasma treatment first you have to do pre-treatment PDMS surface. You have to expose it to air plasma treatment. That means suppose you have a glass desiccator. The desiccator I showed you previously, you will have a glass one, and you suck the air out of it, and you fill with air, oxygen into it, and you put put it into plasma treatment machine, plasma cleanser, and you expose it for 1 minute, or you can go for shorter durations also, it will work. And after activating, you just rinse it with ethanol for 10 minutes, and then you again repeat this process for 3 to 4 times, then air dry it, then you will get your angle. See here, 25 to 40 degrees. That means when you put your drop on top of it, and if its angle is less, then that is good for coating. If when it is super hydrophobic or hydrophobic, the angle of water bubble will be higher, around 100 or something. That means you won't be able to coat it. So water drop, on top of this hydrophobic and hydrophilic will give you the understanding whether your particular polymer is activated properly or not. But here I am facing one problem is the polymer activation is not even enter the surface. So I am checking where I am making the mistake. So that is one thing. Now material selection for conductive part. Actually, this is the something that I started recently only. So you can work with copper foil, and you can work with conductive fabrics for textiles. You can work with conductive inks using nanoparticles like copper, silver, nickel, and graphene, etc. And when you are working with the nanoparticles and the nano inks, you have to measure its conductivity first, and you have to give that value. You should probably give that value while you are simulating inside your simulator, so that your particular both will be in the good matching. So if you just give perfect E condition for your conductor, and you are using some material here, they may not match. When simulated and measured may not match. So it's better you estimate its conductivity and give it into the material selection of your simulation tool, and do that. And SEMGraph will enable you understand the size of your particular nanoparticle. Size of your nanoparticles plays a role. Why, I will tell you. So here, so fabrication, so the flexible materials which are available from those are these things. You can directly use 11 lab, and you give your part model, and they will do the fabrication and give you. Sorry, I am going a little bit faster because I have to complete few other things too. Here, in case of textiles, you can take the conductive fabrics. You can take the any cloths are available, and you can use some particular equipment. I will show you in the later slide. In case of polymers, some polymers are available, and you can customize your own polymer. Conductive inks also, some conductive inks are available for you with proper pH monitoring and everything, or you can make on your own. So printing the antenna design and substrate, attaching that particular antenna part is the basic one. You can start with this, taking a copper foil with 0.05 mm thickness. So here you give your CAD model to EDM, electrical discharge matching. This particular device is more familiar for the mechanical department people. They use this for cutting the solid parts. So what they will do is they will make your foils. They will keep number of foils on top of each other and make it look like a particular solid brick. So copper foils stacked together and made it like a brick. So this particular one, then they will put it into their machine, and they will give the CAD mode, and they will cut that particular part. So then you can use some additions or binding like glues or something, and you can attach that to your antenna part. That is what I showed you, my first glimpse of my antenna. So that is where I think you will get that. Now here, conductive nanoparticles, when you are working, you can go for roll-to-roll printing, screen printing, and don't go for daughter blade printing, because daughter blade printing is not suitable for us, because my particular our particular polymer is elastic in nature. When you put the daughter blade and try to do the printing, your polymer will elasticize. So that particular coating will come like a wrinkled model. So it is not suitable for us. You can use the deposition techniques. but it may not be available for everybody, the deposition techniques and that high-end equipment. And one more thing is, if you are using that equipment, you should be careful not to contaminate that particular high-end equipment. So material printers, these are the material printers. Spraying, this is a setup, and spin coating. Actually, I wanted to take a video of this thing too. Unfortunately, that lab is closed for last 5 days. People are not coming properly because of this COVID situation. But I will try to show you a few things. So this is a particular material printer that commonly used for most of the people. Apart from that, the easily available one are Epson L20 series or P50 series. If you take, you don't use it, don't fill it with any ink. Direct first user should be your conducting particles directly. You can fill that ink into holders with your silver ink or your copper ink, and you put it, and you can print your particular antenna structure. I know suggesting these two are having that particular capsule size is a little bit higher compared to the previous other modules. This will help you in one way. Why? Because you see this spray gun or this nozzle or this printer nozzle. Sometimes when the pH level of this nanoparticle is not maintained properly, they will group together, and when they are grouped together, even though you are putting some pressure while spraying, they will clot your entrance. That will probably create a problem. So that is the reason this Epson will have a little bit higher one, that will be good. Here also you can add some caps also, based on your nanoparticle size. You can add some caps to your spraying also. Then you can do the spray coating or spin coating. Spin coating is another beautiful thing where you can control your thickness and everything. But here a couple of things I will try to tell you. Make sure your polymer is activated properly, and while spraying, when you are spraying, it's better you take your polymer with a preheated condition, probably 60 degrees or a little bit above. Why I'm saying preheated is, most of the inks that we take, we will mix it with isopropyl alcohol along with our particular nanoparticle. When we disperse that and try to coat, this isopropyl alcohol will be easily evaporated. But if it's not, when you are coating, like you are spraying that, and sometimes because it is a liquid, sometimes more liquid will come to one side, less liquid come to one side. This kind of problems may occur while coating. So in such cases, your nanoparticles are deposited more at one side, less at one side. This is the problem. So, but if you are taking a preheated polymer, this particular heat will help in evaporating your isopropyl alcohol very faster, so that you can get a uniform coating of your conducting part. That is one precaution you can take. And another advantage of taking a preheated polymer is, so that particular heat will enable the polymer surface to absorb that particular nanoparticles to its surface properly and hold them. Then you will have a proper addition between the substrate, polymer substrate, and as well as your nanoparticles. That is one good thing if you are taking a preheated polymer for spraying using. So here are a few things. Suppose you take a PET form and a PET film or something, and you deposit your nanoparticle on top of it. Okay, polytetra fluoroethylene filter. So you take that, and you, in the vacuum deposition, you put your particular conducting particles. What will happen is, they are removing that particular water content, and slowly that nanoparticles will be coated on top of it. Now, after the pre-polymerization of polymers and activated your polymer, they will just put that particular part in a reverse manner here and peel off the PTFE film. Then your conductor part is attached to your polymer. Similarly, PET film, suppose a PET or polymer, whatever you activated polymer you are taking, after that you will put your nanoparticles. You can put copper nanowires, copper nanoparticles, copper nanoflakes, whatever copper nanowires. You can use spray coating and laser sprinkling, everything, ultraspun coating, several other things also there. So once you coat that, this spin coating you can see here. This is actually one particular equipment is there, where in the middle you will put your sample and put a drop of polymer, and you adjust your speed, and it will rotate and distribute your polymer equally. Why that I will tell you. So here, this particular spray coating that what we discussed previously, this is a spray coating, and we will put some pressure, and your CU will be coated to the mask we have. Now, anti-oxidization process. So when you are working with conductive particles, the 3-4 problems that you will face are first thing is like the nanoparticles. Some people after coating they will try to bake it. No, don't do that. That particular temperature, high temperature, will spoil your nanoparticles and it will get oxidizes and breakage. Another thing is after some usage, any antenna that we work, probably even your copper normal resist material that you take, when you put it outside, after some time it will lose its color, it will get oxidized and its performance will degrade. Similarly, our nanoparticles after coating also, that particular nanoparticles that we coated will get oxidized eventually over the time, and the performance will slowly degrade over the time of usage. So in order to increase its durability, what we will do is we will, after coating the nanoparticle, what we will do is we will put the sample on top of the particular spin coater, and you put a drop of polymer, mixed polymer, and you use the spin coater and with a maximum speed. And what it will do is it will rotate and adjust our polymer overall that entire particular conducting part and make a protective layer on top of it. So that means this protective polymer is helping in helping in protecting your conducting part not to get oxidized, and it will improve that. So when you do that, probably you should consider, suppose you take your nanoparticles inside your simulation tool and you probably add a little bit, some 30 micrometer or 50 micrometer thickness of PDMS on top of it into concentration of your simulation. So this 30-50 micrometer on top of your conducting part is the spin coating one. So that one also you probably add, that will be very nice. So flexibility, so you can see the conducting part that we are attaching now are, they are flexible but they are not elastic. When you are using for wearable application for mounting, sometimes for sports people who do exercise and the people who do play and the sports and all, so according to their muscle flexibility, the antenna must elastic. Your polymer is elastic but the flexible part is not elastic. So that the reason now the people are embedding this conducting nanoparticles into polymer and making a polymer based conductive layers also. So this polymer based conductive layers will have some elasticity also. This is one advantage. I haven't tried this part yet. I tried this part with graphene, but I was facing some problem with curing. So it is still looking like little bit liquid even after leaving it for longer duration. So now textile antennas fabrication, no, I think there is not much to tell. You can find these things if you have, most of the things in these first two slides, you will find them in the paper. So here, like this is the polymer, and these conductive threads are embroidered into the polymer. You take a PDMS brick of 2 mm thickness and you give your design conductive thread, and it will do this. So embroidered into the polymer, and you give this particular structure, you give your CAD model, and it will do the embroidery, and you can use the spray coating, or you can give your copper file to EDM cutting, and you can attach that to your particular textile. So this is another thing. Now what I want to add here apart from the usual data is most of these textile antennas, they suffer few things over the longer duration, and there are some effects you need to be addressed. So suppose the polymer that we discussed until now, that is a repellent to water, so there is no effect of wetting effect. But if you go for textile antennas, because of your own sweat or because of rain or something, probably it will get wet. So when the water content is mixed to that fabric, automatically your characteristics of the antenna will change. And another thing is avoiding cracks and damages. So you take a textile antenna, that threads over the users, that outside the edge parts of threads, they will peel off one by one. The threads will come out of it. So after some time, your conducting, your particular textile part will not be maintained, and it will come off. And another thing is washing. After you repeatedly wash it, you have to take care of what is the robustness of your particular antenna that made. So this couple of things are being added extra in the recent articles. So apart from doing your textile antenna, if you can address these things and add into your article, then it will give a little bit more boost to your paper. So Textile embedded into polymer. This is one thing that may solve. Actually, I want to show this demonstrated using spray coating, but as I said, I was unable to access that
I
equipment.
can try
So
to
here
pen.
I have, and one more thing is I have a very less quantity of this cobalt conducting part. So just I was coating the entire part. So the cloth part with the cobalt conducting parts. Make sure there is no white part. The copper that particular nanoparticle is fully given. Usually, I would prefer fixing this particular textile as flat as possible without any crumpling. Then only I will do that. I will usually take some extra part and fix it properly to the surface without any complaints. Then only I will usually pour this polymer. But I want to take this video faster, so I did a little bit hurry. So I poured the polymer. Normally, this polymer pouring also I won't do like this. I will use the spin coating and put this polymer, and the polymer will be distributed equally and evenly throughout that particular textile part. So here the excess part I am removing by lifting up the sample. The excess part will come off the polymer. See, you can see it's dropping off. Now, see, this is the thing. Now, I let it cure for a longer duration at room temperature. Monday, I started this one. Today, it's got cured. Morning, I took the video of this particular thing. See, you can see your conductive fabric is embedded into polymer. And this edge parts, you can see this edge parts, they won't come off. These threads won't come off. Your conducting particle will be folded properly. The threads will not come out of it. That makes it very nice. So this is a thing that you can probably add to your research. So material assignment in HFSS. Probably I will show you simply. So here, simply select your particular substrate, and you go here. Normally, it's filled with vacuum. You go to edit. Go for add material. Suppose you made a PDMS, you select PDMS, type PDMS, and go for relative permittivity 2.7 and dielectric loss tangent around 0.0314 and validate your material and press OK. So I think I already added the polymer, so it's showing it's already there. Normally that is how you add. So you can select some other name and you can add probably 2.7 and as well as you give dielectric loss tangent of 0.0314, validate and press OK and press OK. Okay, so you can see that particular material that you created is assigned here. This is how we take your skin and fat and muscle also. So you for skin, fat, muscle, bone, and everything for different frequencies. If you want dielectric properties, you may work at different frequencies. You want to get to know of those dielectric properties. You type Daniel C. Gabriel dielectric properties of human tissues. Then you will get to type that in Google. You will get one website. In that website, you enter your frequency you want and press OK. For all the human tissues, you will get the dielectric properties, and you add the dielectric properties in the simulation, and you work with that. So similar way, added the dielectric properties of the polymer, you can add the conductive part also. So that is how you work with. So assigning material is this is the steps that I showed. So some complication is if you are not curing your polymer properly, then it will be little bit stickiness, and while peeling off it will break. And sometimes that some of the polymer and will stick to your particular mold. In some cases, if you can, so the beginners can use universal mold releaser spray, silicone based universal spray. So the mold release spray that you can try, spray your particular mold with that and clean it, and then you pour the PDMS and it will peel easily. So if you don't break it properly, it will. And if you bake it if you're not baking it properly, it will break easily. The uneven substrate distribution that I already explained you, be patient with that. Uneven distribution of nanoparticles. So sonificate it, make sure that it's distributed properly. Okay, so surface activation sometimes partially it's failing. That is one complication you can face. So try to rectify that. Conductivity, these are particles pH maintenance. So you use something, you left it for some days, then nanoparticles will group together, and when you directly put it into the spray coating or something, it will clot it. So the clotting problem you need to address. So make sure that it is the pH is maintained. Brittle nature. If you are adding too much of oxides into your polymer, the polymer will break. It will become brittle nature and it will break easily. That is also residual cleaning. After you do all this process, the toughest part of this research is cleaning your vessels, and probably leave that vessels for few days and it will get hardened. When the polymer residue is getting hardened, it is easy to clean. If there is any residue, I prefer acetone to clean that residue, then it will become very good. Each time before you start, clean your vessels with the acetone and use a hair dryer to dry your vessels, and then you start the procedure. So if you are working with conductive nanoparticles coating, please try to use this protective gear. Don't try to ignore this nanoparticles and all. So wearable antennas, here I will try to go little speed because most of these things you will find in paper, but I want to address one thing. So now I have already discussed about how you make a bending design in simulation tool, and you will make polymer, and you make and how you can coat your conducting parts, fabrication issues and complications. Now what I want to address is when you do the research for wearable antenna, two things you will care. First thing is bending effects, and another thing is body effects. So for demonstrating that, I took my own marks and I'm showing here. Here you can see for this antenna, so NOMS, WMS comparison. You can see, so here you can see X bend and Y bend. This is X bend, this is flat, this is X bend, this is Y bend. Now you can see in flat condition at 2.45 it's coming. While bending for without metameter, when it's shifting, the frequency is shifting. Again, just like that affect human body affect also because of the high dielectric properties, mostly the particular dielectric simulation reflection coefficient will tend to shift to lower resonance. So that is also you have to take care. So here also I am showing that while bending and in flat condition I kept it on body, so the effect is there. It's shifting. Now on body analysis or analysis I have taken, and another analysis that you can add is you can put your antenna at different portions of your body in CAD model, and you take that CAD models into ANSYS Savant tool. In that Savant tool, you can fix your antenna on top of your body at different parts. So when it placed on chest, this is how your radiation is coming with respect to your body. When you put it in thigh, it is how your radiation is coming with respect to your thigh. Yeah, when you put it on hand, this is how your radiation is coming. So this analysis also you can probably add to your research article and make it good. So this is a fabricated antenna and measured, simulated and measured results. Now this antenna, this is what I want to show. So previously I showed you the effect. Now I'm going to show you how I adjusted that. Here, this antenna, most of the literature that you do, they will take a secondary layer consisting of 9 or 16 metamaterial units placed, and probably this is the antenna layer. Then the bottom layer is a bigger one, and it is holding several metamaterial units there. It will be used to reduce the SAR as well as the isolating the reflection coefficient. But instead of that, I wanted to do without taking the second layer. I wanted to position my metameter structure in such a way that without using any secondary layer I can achieve both SAR adjustment, bending adjustment and on-body adjustment. So you can see flat condition and bending condition, it is maintaining at that 2.45. For different bending radius also it is maintaining. So here on body, off body condition and bending condition, you can see both are maintaining at the same frequency. This is how I got the isolation. So if you start your antenna wearable research, so this is what you should address first. Then you can add your application, whatever application you want to work, a medical application, diagnostic application, any application you want to work, that you can add as a novelty to your work and project your research. So this is capsule antenna. The smallest antenna they did for endoscopic applications. So different variations we projected our results. This is off-body simulation results. So on body we took the body model and we gave the bladder dielectric constant values, and this is the SAR value. Normally inside body at a particular sensitive parts we usually go with less input power, around 10 milliwatts or 5 milliwatts only. And this is the once it is, as it's inside the human body, we can clearly see how the radiation is fluctuating because the antenna is inside the body. So this is how we validated. Another validation you can add is in the sound, you can take the TX to RX coupling analysis. So you put your antenna in the sound here and you put another antenna at some distance of 1 meter or 2 meter. Suppose you are monitoring the health of your particular patient. So you can see how this particular antenna is transmitting signal to that particular one, and what is the TX signal, TX to RX signal, coupling signal. Probably for this telemetry application, it is better if you are getting at least some minus 70 dB coupling or some papers minus 80, minus 90 also they suggested that is working. So probably you try to improve that further and you can project that also as an added advantage to your research article. So this is a fabricated one. Inside the meat, we kept the antenna and we gave the comparison of it. And application point of view, so you can add your preparation of particular nanoparticles or particular polymer preparation, what you added, your signature that you added to it, that procedure you can fill it one part of your one section of your research article, and you can compare the same graphs and you can compare its mechanical strength with the existing works and why you went for that. All these things you can add apart from the novelty of original your research. This will give some added boost, and you can go for submitting your this paper into several interdisciplinary journals. So these are the results, common results that we usually take: radiation data, separation, SIM analysis, conductivity analysis, relative properties comparison, flat bending comparison, on-body, off-body comparisons, application-oriented performance. If needed, like you are taking it for cancer detection or some other diagnostic purpose, monitoring purpose, human emotion detection, all these things. Mostly you will go with S1N comparison only. So for different orientation, how your S1N is variating. If you simply project that itself is enough for motion detection. So flexible antenna research, there are plenty of researches for medical emergency responding implants, endoscopy, RFID, several other. Apart from that, human body wearable application. There are several conformable body for spacecrafts, vehicular communication, several things. You can use it for food automatic. Food processing units for surveillance, the sensors for food processing units you can do using these polymers. Some polymer you can take that sustain for high temperature, you can do it. And AI based automatic industry things, that is one thing that is happening very rapidly nowadays. You can develop your antennas to suit that particular applications also. Plenty. Apart from that, you can go, if you are confident and working enough with these polymers and materials, you can go for sensors, wearable sensors for state sensing, motion detection, blood and glucose monitoring. So normally the antenna we are taking, we can monitor our heart rate and BP or everything. If you take invasive antenna, so the invasive antenna, partial invasive and partial non-invasive, then it will monitor your glucose and blood values. And you can take invasive antennas like capsules and implants. These things, all these things we can work it. And another one thing that we are developing these polymers is especially for absorption, energy absorption, because I want to work with metamaterial absorbers using flexible materials. So flexible microwave absorbers that I wanted to work. That is the reason I am spending much of the time with this one. The polymer sponge that I showed, they are used for tribiotic nanogeneration also. You can probably look into that, how adding these impurities and taking the high dielectric constant can improve the performance of TENGs. That is another research you can look into and work on. So that is also I want to mention here. So the people who wants to have some clarity regarding the nanomaterials, this particular paper, you go through it because it gives very clear-cut information of how different copper nanomaterials are made and how different fabrication techniques you can use. Probably 30 pages paper. This is too good. So if you are starting, and probably you start reading this paper. And this is, as I said, the nanoparticle dispersion into solvent is the one thing that plays a major role here. So this is explains how the dispersion characteristics of the particular particles into solvents. So the dispersion, when I mix it into one solvent and I put it, after sometimes it's settling down, then that's may not be good. You want some solvent where you disperse the nanoparticles into it and you left it for a few time, some time also. So even then the nanoparticles are still dispersed properly, then that is good to use. So that is the reason you probably go through this paper. This explains the dispersion behavior and everything very nicely. And the polymer activation, you can directly go into the people who are producing and difference that. They will give you the clear cut, and you can get that kit also, purchase that and use it for polymer activation. And the porous nature materials, I will give these two materials you go through, and you will get all the information you need. And probably you can work with tribal energy harvesting and all using porous nature. And there are some other applications also, sweat sensing, water harvesting, this porous nature, water harvesting, oil cleaning, especially for cleaning and absorbing impurities. Several other applications are there. You probably can work whichever that you interested in. So that is the end of my session.